Happy Saturday, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Counterpoint with Rory Sauter and Paul Davis. It is great to be back with all of you. It has been a while. It has been over a month, Paul, almost 2 months.
Yeah.
We haven't done a show in the new year yet. The last time was December. A lot has happened since then. We
Few
have
things.
a crazy world that we're living in. Where do we start? What do we want to get into? And first off, how was your holiday season? How's everything been going? What have you been working on? Fill us in. Give us the rundown. Give us the 411.
All right. Well, it's good to see you, man. Like
Yeah.
I missed our weekly chat.
Me too.
So I know the holidays were crazy. We tried to. I was on a cruise and we tried to stream from that, but it didn't quite work out because I couldn't get a good internet connection, as that tends to happen on a cruise. But it was everything. I mean, it was amazing, absolutely amazing. Hawaii. I've never been to Hawaii. Hawaii was gorgeous. I think my favorite island was Kauai, just because as far as beauty goes, I think the best beaches were on the Big Island. That was my favorite beach. Maui was also beautiful. They're all amazing. It's pretty hard. It's pretty hard to compare them, you know. And then I had my all-time most viewed Instagram video taken from the deck of my ship. It was so cool, man. I don't know if you saw this video making the rounds, but the Hawaiian government banned fireworks, and I was on Maui in Kahului, the port, and everybody in Kahului all at the same time shot off fireworks, like just independent people. It was the best fireworks display I've ever seen. I mean, just all across the horizon, everywhere you looked, there's just tons of fireworks going off. So I videoed it, and I was like, the Hawaiian government banned fireworks. The Maui citizens of Maui were like, go pound sand. What lesson can we draw from this? And I got like 5 million views on my account. And then it was like, I saw it everywhere. It was on TikTok. And so that was pretty cool.
That kind of reminds me of the California scenario a few years ago when Newsom tried to, put restrictions and heavy regulations on fireworks in this state. And people are like, fuck off. You're not taking away our freedom. You're not taking away our party. We're going to have a good time.
Exactly. Yeah, it was just like that. That's actually what made me like when I first saw it, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I've never seen anything like this before."
Right.
And except for that video in LA, it was like the exact same thing, and it was on New Year's Eve, which was it just made it cool. What's funny though is I think it got so much play because of the Maui fire, because people were all arguing about that, and man, it was just the coolest thing to see though. I was so glad I was there for that, and so yeah, how was your holidays? Anything?
It was fantastic, but I have to ask you.
Yeah.
You brought up the Maui fire. What are your thoughts on that? I don't know if we ever really got into detail on that matter. It's still extremely troubling to me. Very, very mysterious. There's a lot of unanswered questions, a lot of things that don't add up.
Yeah.
And like many of these incidences, you hear about it for a few days, for a few weeks, and then it goes away. And then we never get to the bottom of if there was any corruption involved.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. One of my Instagram followers, Bob.
Because people forget. People, this is how civilization works. We hear things, we invest our energy into it, and then something new comes up in the headlines. And then we totally move on.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Move on. No, that's totally true. I wanted to say though, somebody in my Instagram comments, Bob Nicholas 73 said, "You two never looked better." So, I mean, have you ever looked better? I don't know. I think we look pretty good, right?
Yeah. I think we're doing great.
Yeah. Anyway, I appreciate that comment.
Thank you, Bob. That was very sweet of you. We appreciate the kind words. God bless you, sir.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, you made a good point with. Think of just the Maui fire, and we don't hear much about that anymore. We don't hear much about the Ohio train derailment, like these big things that happen, and everybody's freaking out about it, as they should, because they're horrible incidents. And then all of a sudden we're on to the next thing, But I did hear something about the Maui fire today on some show I was watching or maybe I think it was yesterday. I think it was Owen Schroer's War Room on on Infowars. But he had a guy on that was talking about how we're sending $60 billion to Ukraine, or they're trying to, but these people in Maui are still without a home, without any kind of aid. I'm sure that's still the same case with people in Ohio.
Yeah.
Why are our senators trying to send? It's actually like almost $100 billion of overseas aid. I think it's like 95. I counted it up in that failed border bill package. Why are we sending all that money overseas when we got people on the streets in Maui that need help? We got people in Ohio, East Palestine, that need help, and we're sending that money to the other Palestine, overseas, and Ukraine. Why are we doing that?
It's and then Israel, and then we're giving all these other countries money too. It just doesn't end. And if you read the bills, if you read the legislation that they pass, you would see countries in these bills that we have there's nothing there for us, but the money is being given, and it's being given for the most useless things, like things, I think I read like teaching kids in Africa how to, use there's just things like I read, things in China and us giving, it's crazy to me. Like,
it's sick. It's sick what our politicians use our money for, and we all know it's just going to.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just saying we either our money's either going to some kind of special interest group where people are just using it for selfish purposes. Probably it's not going to what they're actually saying it's going to. If it's going to Ukraine, it's probably not going to the battlefield either. A lot of these weapons end up in the Israel-Palestine war. That drone that that killed the 3 U.S. soldiers on that base. That was a U.S. drone. Why was there a U.S. drone flying into a U.S. base? Nobody keeps track of these weapons, and then you got all these Russian or Ukrainian oligarchs, buying mansions and fancy cars and getting their pensions paid for while our people are starving on the streets. And then we got, in Chicago, they're literally giving illegal immigrants $9,000 a month to live on in these prepaid cash cards. Like, what is going on? The last people our government cares about are American citizens.
Right. I mean, we're giving, like, think about what taxpayers have to endure. Think about what they go through. They work hard, they pay taxes, and this is how the government repays them. It's giving money and giving money to terrorist countries too. The Middle East. Look at all the money that goes to the Middle East in these legislation. These various bills. It's atrocious. And we fund a lot of these wars that we get into. We fund the enemy. We fund the problem. We fund it.
Yeah, we absolutely do. I mean, it's the problem, reaction, solution that we always hear about. The government creates the problem. I think the biggest news this week, this had to be one of the biggest news weeks like ever. I even said that on my show on Friday. I was like, I think today I have more news, more videos, more than I've ever had, because you had the Putin interview, which is still a bombshell. I'm still trying to wrap my mind around the whole thing, analyze everything. Everybody's talking about it. And then you got the Biden special prosecutor saying he committed the crime, but he's too senile to stand trial, basically. And so if he's too senile to stand trial, how is he president of the United States? How can he not be, too incompetent to be president of the United States? So, and then you had the Supreme Court hearing oral argument on whether Trump should be on the ballot for in this next election. This was an insane week, man. Absolutely insane.
And I will say this. What that Putin interview with Tucker showed all of us is that Putin is not a boogeyman. He is actually probably the greatest world leader alive right now. He's talking the most sense. He's on board with the same ideology that you and I are discussing regularly, that we are constantly addressing. I mean, this guy knows more about Western civilization than our own leaders. And he's not looking for conflict. He is simply defending his country. He's doing what's best for Russia. I respect this guy. And you know what? It's a shame that the media and these politicians in our country for so long have deemed this guy as this horrible villain, when in reality, he's not that. He's not. He is a person who is looking out for Russia's best interests. And because he cannot be compromised, and because he can't be bought and paid for, and he doesn't get on board with this globalist agenda, that really gets on their nerves, and they can't handle that. That's why they paint him in this light. They did it with so many other world leaders that they've taken out in the past, and they listen to their vocabulary. They want to take out Putin because he simply will not get on board with them. And that's simply what most other countries are getting on board with the globalist agenda, and they're puppets. Putin is like one of the very few that is his own guy. He's his own dude. He runs his own show, and you're not going to really tell him what to do.
Yeah, I agree with that for the most part. The only caveat I would add is that I watched the interview. David Icke and Alex Jones had a debate over just a lot of things. I mean, it was like more of a discussion than a debate. I mean, there's a lot to unpack there, but he made one good point. David Icke did about this. He said, look at, now you see people on the right in America starting to engage in what he characterized as like hero worship of Putin. I'm not sure I would go that far, but that is accurate to some extent. I mean, and you kind of just made that point. It's like people, and I thought the same things you did. I was watching Putin. I was like, I'm not going to take everything he said at face value, but if you do, he's saying all the things I like. He's supporting Orthodox Christianity. He's against war. He's for nationalism. He's trying to protect the interests of his own country. And he seems like a pretty smart, personable guy, at least in the interview. I mean, that's my only really experience watching him.
He actually seems friendly and funny and charismatic. And him and Tucker were sharing laughs back and forth. Like, I really enjoyed the conversation. I thought it was extremely entertaining. I thought it was extremely constructive. I thought a lot got mentioned. I thought Tucker was amazing for bringing up the fact that there was a individual from our country being held captive over there. And that's ballsy. You probably wouldn't see any other journalists tell that to Putin's face, that it's wrong what you're doing, Putin, let him go. He's just a kid. And Tucker, that's big balls right there. I mean, that's no joke. You're saying that to the world leader's face in his own country. I mean to the Russian leader's face in his own country. That's big. That's big.
It was definitely a ballsy move. I mean, I don't think anybody's ever accused Tucker Carlson of not having big cojones when it comes to speaking the truth and calling people out.
That was big. Yeah.
Yeah. And but I also think, I mean, Putin handled the question pretty well. Again, I'm not going to take everything.
I think Putin likes Tucker. I think that has a lot to do with it. I think the fact that Putin felt comfortable and just, I think Tucker is really good with the way he sits down and conducts these interviews. I mean, he really makes people feel like they're special and like that, they can talk, and that, he's just there to listen, and things are going to get established. Like he has this formula that is magic.
Yeah, he has an excellent demeanor. I mean, I've long thought Tucker Carlson is probably the greatest journalist out there right now.
Probably, maybe ever. I mean, we have to look at maybe ever. I mean, it's. I
agree.
You go ahead. Keep going though.
No, I totally agree. I mean, the connection I was going to make from what we were talking about before to something that Putin said that I haven't posted this clip yet. I've seen a lot of the clips that people have posted, and it didn't include this one key phrase that I thought was really just interesting. He says, he talks about the lead up to the Ukraine war and what they're saying in America as to why we have to fund this war. And he says it's a scheme to extort American taxpayers into supporting the Ukraine war, foreign wars. And I'm like, that is what our government does. They extort us. They have to have, the reason Russia is demonized so much is because America needs a boogeyman. We always have to have a boogeyman.
Right. We've been doing
is Islamic terrorism, which we funded, as you pointed out. We funded the rise of Islamic terrorism, and it's just it's insane that we do that. Like, we start our CIA, and Candace Owens actually had a really great tweet I saw yesterday, just talking about why is the CIA even considered American? They don't act in America's best interest. But one thing they did was set up these radical Islamic schools all over the Middle East as a deterrent to Soviet expansion, because the Soviet government was atheistic, and they figured, just explaining it simply, that would be stem the tide of Soviet expansion. Well, yeah, it also radicalized the Muslims, who ended up hating us also. So it kind of works too well, you know what I mean? But that's what they do. They meddle in affairs they should not be meddling with overseas, and they create a boogeyman that they can then extort U.S. taxpayers. Hey, we got to fend off this evil. We got to have a global war on terror, and now we got to keep Russia from taking over all of Europe and the West. It's all lies, just to get us to support endless wars.
Yeah, and it never ends. The military-industrial complex is alive and well, and it's going to continue. And yeah, I mean, and look at what we're doing now with Iran and all these other Iraq. We're getting back and we're getting more involved with the Middle East again, which is not good. It's not good. We just saw what happened with our soldiers a couple of weeks ago, and I believe that might have been something that was planned. I mean, come on, I just don't. I don't know. I don't know. I think that, sadly, I think our government, I think our military knows about some of these attacks beforehand, and they do nothing about it. And I'll tell you why. Because if they do something about it and they prevent it, then there's not going to be a crazy aftermath retaliation. So they allow these things to happen, so then they can go in front of the press and say, well, we saw this strike and we got to really do something now. This is a serious matter. This is nothing to really joke around with. The enemy is attacking us. So, I mean, this is what happens. This is the game.
Yeah. I mean, they have to have that. I mean, pretty much every war. I mean, prior to World War I, America's default policy was isolation. Like, Americans did not want to get involved in any overseas war. We just wanted to take care of our stuff at home. And why would we need to? That's a whole nother continent over there. Like, why do we need to get involved in their affairs? And the only reason we have is to make money for the central bankers, because you notice right after they passed the Federal Reserve Act, then literally the very next year, World War I started. And we all of a sudden, we had a balanced budget before that for the most part. All of a sudden, we're $800 billion in debt. I mean, this is how this works. And then ever since then, it's like, and then they just use a lie to get America involved. Like, the sinking of the Lusitania, that was brought back up, which it happened like, I don't know, I want to say like a year before we actually got involved. But then the American press starts playing it up in the news about how evil the Kaiser, and the Germans are, to get Americans all riled up to get involved. And like European leaders, Churchill himself said World War I would have ended in like years before it did if the U.S. had not gotten involved. and then it's like, I mean, you can go through every single war. I mean, Pearl Harbor, lots of weird stuff about that, about how our government knew. I mean, the Gulf of Tonkin for Vietnam, our government admitted it never happened. It was just a false flag to get people to go to war. Weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, and then Putin. 9/11. Don't even get me started on that. And Putin points out, it's like, I've been trying to make peace with the United States for 30 years, like Russia has, and they won't have it. And why is that? Because our military-industrial complex and the central bankers need a boogeyman that they can extort American taxpayers for.
It's true, man. It's true. And it doesn't end. It really doesn't end. And I'll tell you what, I do wonder what the next step is if a peace negotiation does in fact take place, because I just don't see the neocons being satisfied. I just don't see them being okay. I mean, even if there is a peace deal, they're still going to deem Putin as the enemy. They're still going to continue to go after him in the future. This isn't their fight and battle with Putin isn't over.
Yeah.
No, and they're going to continue to attack him. And this is the problem. You get a lot of these world leaders, and I think I mentioned this earlier. You get a lot of these world leaders, and they all like team up like bullies. And you have a guy like Putin who stands alone for what he believes in and representing his country. That's a problem. I look at the way we conduct things and these world leaders and how they gang up on guys like Putin. It's so problematic. It really rubs me the wrong way. Leave these people alone. Leave guys like Putin alone. Like he's doing what he does. He's going to continue to do what he does. And if you get in his way, he's probably going to blow your head off. I mean, it's very simple.
Yeah. I mean, and before I forget to finish the point I was going to make about that David Icke interview.
Look, I don't look at Putin as a bully. I look at these world leaders as the ultimate bullies for trying to gang up. I mean, this is this is dirty. Go ahead.
I agree. So I posted this to my Instagram and X accounts today that David Icke was making the point, hey, Putin said he did say a lot of good things. He said a lot of things that we all for the most part can agree with and approve of. But, now you're seeing kind of this like hero worship of Putin on the right where, people like you and me are just like, well, yeah, I agree with everything he said. I mean, he's not the bad guy, not the villain that people made him out to be. But what David Icke pointed out is, and I actually did notice this during the interview towards the end, he starts talking about China. And he characterizes China. He says, well, China's foreign policy is not aggressive. Not like he was contrasting China's approach with the United States. And I mean, he was correct in that the United States' approach is basically like a stick approach. We get all these countries to do our bidding by threatening them, basically. Yeah. And China is taking the opposite approach. I mean, this is what I took from it. And they're going in and nation building, so they're going into Africa and hey, we'll build your infrastructure, we'll build your internet, all your lay down fiber optic cables, all this stuff. Like they went into Brazil and like China runs Brazil's entire power grid, which is kind of concerning, very concerning. But so China is doing that, and Putin was saying the U.S. need not be afraid. Basically, like we should see China as a partner, and I don't agree with that. And that's what David Icke was saying. He's saying Chinese communism, their style of communism, this totalitarian police state control mechanism that they have, is the model for the globalist New World Order. They want these globalists that want to rule the world. China is their model. There's a totalitarian surveillance state with a social credit score and all of that kind of stuff. And so he was saying, be wary of that because Putin was kind of pushing China. You don't need to be opposed to China. Like, why don't you just partner with China? So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
To be fair, I want to touch on that. I mean, don't you agree that China has been a partner of ours for a long time with all the manufacturing, with all the trade? I mean, even though their ideology is flawed and you're right, you bring up the communism tactics, and we don't want to embody any of that. We don't want to, but at the same time, I feel like they're a part of the USA in a way I don't mean like a part of the USA, like country-wise, nothing like that, but I mean with everything that they've done with us from, like I said, from a trade standpoint, from manufacturing. In certain ways, people have even said they own the USA with business, with the economy. So, I mean, I think we've done a lot of sucking up to them. So I don't know your thoughts on that.
Well, I mean, they obviously own our president. I mean, the Bidens got millions of dollars from China, from Chinese entities affiliated with the CCP. So they obviously own us. I mean, I do think China has been our partner. I think the problem is that they are
not the good type of partner, because I mean, well, here's what I'll say. They've ripped us off financially, obviously, with the currency stuff. And I mean, I could go on and on about that, but a lot of the stuff that is made in China, I don't believe we would be able to live without. Even though a lot of it's shitty, even though a lot of it's terrible products, I don't think we would survive if we didn't have some of that. I would say a significant amount of that stuff.
Oh yeah, no, there's no doubt about that.
So I think they know that, and that's why they've been able to manipulate and really fuck us over financially for so long, because they know how much power they have over us and how much. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I mean, you're right. I think that. I mean, that could be part of the globalist plan to make America so dependent on China. If China is the model for globalist totalitarian control, I mean, it's like that's probably by design that we're so dependent on China. We depend on all their products. And I mean, the scariest thing to me is that we get our transformers for our power grid from China. And we don't check them for backdoors, for hacking, or anything like this. And this is Tucker Carlson made the point. I saw a video clip of him the other day. I mean, I've said this a lot on my own show. Like, why would China ever get, if they wanted to take over the United States, why would they ever get in a kinetic war with us? All they'd have to do is basically hack into our power grid, shut it down, or just launch a nuke over US soil and just, or an EMP, even just a specific EMP. And I've talked to some people that have pretty good intel that China has EMP devices that they could launch from Venezuela and from Cuba. So, and studies show that if the US power grid goes down, for like 90% of people would die in 90 days. I mean, we would be living in a literal Mad Max Thunderdome world. I mean, it's like people are not prepared for this. I mean, that's why I'm, getting into homesteading and getting off the grid, but most people aren't going to know what to do.
And I think it's coming.
Yeah.
I just think it's a matter of time. We don't know when it's coming, but it's coming.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think there's any doubt about that. I think that it's inevitable.
Yeah.
They're going some country, and it may very well be Russia, is going to get so fucking mad at us because we're going to keep poking the bear and we're going to keep antagonizing, and we're not going to learn because we have a couple assholes at the very top that want to abuse their power, and then all of us get fucked over. I just see it happening.
Yeah.
And the fact that you mentioned 90% of us would be gone in 90 days, that doesn't sit well with me, dude. That sounds like we're going to have to do a lot of fighting to survive if only 90% are expected to stick, or if 90% are expected to go. Jesus Christ, man. The odds are not in our favor.
I mean, that's
How many million is that? If 90% have to, die and 10% stay, what is how many million is that?
Well, let's see, there's approximately 400 million Americans.
So 4 million, only about 4 million would stay. Wow, Jesus. 4 million.
Jesus. So 90% of so that's 4 times 360 million people would die.
Unbelievable, man.
Yeah. And I mean, we could quite literally be facing a Red Dawn scenario. I mean, you see that movie.
Where did you hear that 90% could die?
Well, that's an official report from like the either Department of Homeland Security or the Department of Energy or something like that. There's an official government report out that says that. I mean, that's kind of well known, and I mean, it makes sense. I mean, think about it. If the power grid irreversibly went down, I mean, nobody would have food. Like, it only takes 3 missed meals for there to be mass pandemonium in society, and you shut down shipments to grocery stores, and you can't. If there's no power, how are you gonna even go to the grocery store? Like, you can't. The register is going to be shut down. Nobody's going to be able to get food. Think how panicked people are going to be within even 24 hours. Like, I don't know if you ever fasted. Like, I do like religious fasts. You feel pretty crappy after 2 or 3 meals, and people that aren't used to that are going to freak out.
Yeah, so. I like to fast like every other month. I usually fast for about 3 days. The benefits are tremendous. What it can do for not only the physical body, but for the mind, what it does for our psychology and our psychosis. And it really, gives us a whole new perspective and outlook, and totally like clears.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
It's important. And people have done studies that, doctors at some of the best universities and best research centers saying that if you do this, you are more likely not to develop long-term diseases, cancer, and even various mental diagnosis.
Yeah, I mean, I do the intermittent fasting thing every day. That's supposed to help too, because it cuts down your inflammation, and it's supposed to have a lot of the same effects as like a extended fast. But yeah, it is really good for you. Somebody Jessica Powell on my Instagram said 90% is the figure Bill Gates regularly quotes as well. So apparently people are
Yeah.
hearing that from Bill Gates too, who's, a chief concern is the overpopulation of the world. So wouldn't that be a
Right.
convenient way to take out 380, what did I say, 360 billion people? That'd be or million, I mean, that'd be a pretty big chunk of the population.
Right. And the only billionaire I see talking about the real issue, which is that we're underpopulated, is Elon Musk. He's the
Yeah.
only one that is saying we need to reproduce more, we need to have more kids, the population will not survive if we continue at this rate, because there's a big decrease right now.
Yeah, it's weird. Like Elon Musk is such an interesting character. I mean, obviously, because it's like one day it's like good Elon, bad Elon. Like I feel like he talks it out of both sides of his mouth. Because like, okay, I mean, think of all like he's gonna buy Twitter and let people say whatever they want, which obviously didn't happen. I mean, he's restored a lot of accounts, but people, I still get censored on Twitter. You can tell if you say anything critical of Israel at all, like nobody will see that post. The only post that I've actually gotten censored on, like actually says like nobody will see this post, like this violates our community guidelines, was when I said something about the Rothschilds not being actual descendants of Abraham. They descended from the Khazars, and a lot of these Talmudic Jews are descended from the Khazars. I mean, that was straight up censored on the free speech platform as anti-Semitic. I'm like, that it's true. Like you look at their lineage, they're not descendants of Abraham. Like, how is that anti-Semitic? That's just a fact. So,
And what about, I know one of the main things that's off limits is the tranny talk. You
yep,
can't say anything about them. They're a protected class. Talking about the vaccines, it used to be banned, but now more people are talking about it because obviously we were lied to for so long and the truth came out, which, I mean, I knew the truth all along. I mean, I knew months before these vaccines ever came out, it was a scam.
oh yeah.
And it's
I mean,
sad that so many people bought into it.
it is. It's really sad because I mean, I deal with so many people that come to my law practice with horrible vaccine injuries. I mean, it's really disturbing, and there's not really, unfortunately, much you can do because of this PrEP Act. I'm going to a COVID litigation conference in March. I'm actually excited. I'm speaking at it. I'm going to be a panelist on the employment law panel. That's going to be in Vegas the first weekend in March. Super excited about that. So hopefully I'll be able to learn some more about maybe how to get around this liability shield. But the other thing about going back to Elon Musk, before I go down too much of a rabbit trail. So it's like, okay, the censorship thing.
What,
Thank God. Go ahead.
real quick. What in particular? Because we said we talked about tranny. Obviously, you can't go down that area. What other things did you get censored for? What other topics?
I mean, I haven't noticed. The only thing I've noticed, I don't really look at my Twitter.
I'm sure you got censored back in the day for talking about vaccines.
Oh, for sure. Well, before Elon Musk bought it, I couldn't say anything on X. I didn't even bother with Twitter because it's just every time I posted anything, I would get just a bot army descend on my profile and just it just wasn't worth it. Anyway, but well, okay. So the censorship thing, and then Elon Musk is always talking about, and David Icke actually brought this up on Alex Jones as well. He was saying, "Well, look, Elon Musk is warning us about AI. He's like, this is very dangerous. I mean, this is obvious. Everybody knows AI is dangerous. If you don't, I mean, you've never seen the Terminator movies, or or any sci-fi movie for that matter. Like half of them are about AI take over the world. Which I'm watching Westworld right now, which is that's a good one. If you want a healthy fear of AI, that's a good one to watch. But meanwhile, he's working on this Neuralink project, which is that's the pathway to this transhumanist AI future that they want to impose. So why is he warning of the dangers of AI while still going full steam ahead with AI? And I think that is the most dangerous technology, is this Neuralink thing. Of course, it's great if you can make somebody walk again. That's great. But what is the cost? You're going to hook human minds to a computer, and it's going to be in a cloud. Like, this is the most dystopian of dystopian nightmares. I mean, it's terrifying. Why is Elon Musk doing that? He's got to recognize it.
And they apparently didn't they have some big news last week? Wasn't there somebody that completed the first trial or something? Wasn't there? What news was out?
Yeah, there was they did a successful human trial where they were able
Right.
to connect somebody's brain to Neuralink, which brings up, I don't know if you've ever seen another show people should check out, Black Mirror, if you want a healthy fear of AI, where the scariest episodes on there is where they're, and Elon Musk said this, like he said we will soon be able to basically recreate the human brain, like do like a copy of your brain, put it in the cloud. I mean, that's straight out of Black Mirror. And the dangers of that, it's like, it's so terrifying because they can make a copy of your consciousness. So it's you, but you're stuck in a computer program and they can literally do anything to you and you wouldn't die. Like they could torture you for eternity. Like there's one episode where they put this guy in a room with nothing to do for like 10,000 years, and it's like 5 minutes to everybody on the outside world. I mean, can you imagine the horror of such a thing? I mean, and you think about like, well, but that wouldn't really be me. That would be a copy of me. But it's still like something with a consciousness that's like your consciousness. It's disturbing, man. I don't know. It's really disturbing to me.
And while we're talking about Black Mirror, while we're on that subject, you know, we're also seeing these new Apple headset goggles, and which are a big thing. And then you brought up how Elon can, what he can do with this Neuralink, and how he wants to basically put the brain on a processing system. There's also been talk that when we die, that we'll live on in the future because they'll be able to take our brains and like basically put it on a TV, like a projection, and you'll still be able to communicate, if that makes any sense. So like, it's like you're never leaving in a way. They make movies about this shit, how you basically, you know, go into the system, you go into the computer. Wow, man. I mean, I never thought I would see this day. This is,
it's pretty scary, man. I mean, that the episode that would be like the San Junipero episode of Black Mirror, where they basically like their consciousness goes into the cloud, and then it's like this kind of heaven scenario, but also not at the same time.
Think about everything. Think about everything we're gonna miss. Like we'll miss sex. We'll miss food. We'll miss doing like the everyday things. You know, we'll miss having beers. We'll miss going to sporting events. Well, no, I guess we'll be able to watch sporting events. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, I guess,
but just having life in a projection. It's just like.
Well, I feel like if they're able to, okay, so I mean, if they're able to download your brain to where you can communicate with actual humans through a screen, then presumably they could put your brain, I mean, they could put your digital consciousness, let's call it, the digital copy of you, in a system where you could have all those things, you know, digitally. I mean, you could, I mean, like the Matrix, they have that program where the guy's like, oh, I got a date with the hot red woman or whatever, and it's like a digital sex thing, you know. And I mean, in the Matrix, they eat food, they do all the things. I mean, so I don't see why I don't think you would be deprived of that, because nobody would want that. Nobody would sign up for that. So I think that will be provided for. That's my theory.
Unreal.
Hey, what if, I don't know much. I saw articles about the Apple Vision. I saw a post that
people are driving, like walking down the street and like moving their, like, what the hell is going on, dude? This is the future. This is what everybody's going to be doing eventually. We're not going to have a choice. We're going to be so locked in. We're going to be so engaged in these products. And
not me, not me. I'm gonna be living out in the country off the grid.
Well, you know, I will say within 5 to 10 years,
but everybody will.
I think those goggles are going to be so small and so subtle and so tiny. Like right now they're huge, but I think eventually it's going to be like that. Like you're going to have like basically all of this on like an earbud type of device, but for the eyes, if that makes sense. Like right now they're very big. Right now they're very big because it's new, but it's not going to be extremely big forever. It's it's like, yeah, I mean, it's just the beginning stages, you know?
Well, and you know, I mean, literally Black Mirror has covered all of this. So there's
and then you know what? I'll even go further on this. I could even see a lot of this stuff being invisible. Like I could see our phones and our electronics just being in our skin. Not even on the surface. Not even on the surface. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's what I was literally about to say. I mean, the episode is called the entire history of you on Black Mirror. I think it's like episode 3, season 1 maybe. And episode 2 or 3, and the everybody has something implanted in their brain called grain, and it like goes, this thing goes over your eyes to, so it's like almost like contacts, and it's connected, and it records everything, like literally everything you see, everything you hear, everything you do. So then when you check into the airport for your flight, they're like, "Oh, let me see your grain feed," and somebody literally goes through like your conscious memories of the last, I don't know, 2 weeks to make sure you're not some kind of criminal. I mean, you imagine the invasion of privacy and then just all the horrible things that would lead to, and then people get caught in like what they call redos, so they'll like replay. You can watch your own memories like they're actually happening. I mean, there's so many different crazy applications, but I think you're absolutely right. And Yuval Noah Harari, the high priest of the World Economic Forum, as they call it, Klaus Schwab's right hand man, says surveillance will go under the skin. They're saying that this is what's going to happen. We're going to put a microchip in you. It's going to record everything you do, and it's terrifying. And people are gonna like, they're gonna sell it to the public as like some convenience thing. Oh, like in this wonderful, you can have this chip in your hand, and you don't have to like deal with a credit card. You can just swipe your hand over the device, and you can have your retinas scanned, and you can have everything's just gonna be digital. You don't even need a phone anymore because we're gonna implant a chip in your brain. There's some Netflix show, I can't remember what it's called. Like it's called The Feed. I haven't watched the whole thing. I watched maybe like the first couple episodes. I didn't think it was that good, but they have like people listening to music like in their heads, like some guy's bored at a party and he just like turns on his feed and he's just like jamming to music just like in his head, like it's crazy.
Yeah, think about that. Like, how far away do you think we are?
I mean, I
probably 20 years. That's 20 years away.
No, I disagree. I think it's like 5 years away. I mean, because you look at how advanced, like, think of how like how fast computer chips advance. You have this like, I forget what they call it. There's some kind of like theorem or something that like the size of a microchip shrinks and the capacity of it like doubles every like 5 years or something like that. But when you've heard the concept of the singularity. It's called the singularity because when AI gets so advanced that it is smarter than humans and able to think for itself, and people like Elon Musk will say that's like 2 years away. Like we're gonna have general artificial intelligence, computers that think for themselves and are smarter than us, and I mean have like self-awareness within a couple years. Once that happens, think of how fast things will progress. Because then you have basically a super genius, like smarter than the smartest human, making all this stuff. So it's just going to be like exponential. It's going to take off like a rocket ship.
And then you have companies like ChatGPT that are taking over, that are more evolved than ever before.
Yeah.
And that's, creating a whole new environment for so many different realms in our everyday life. Like, think about all the robots that are going to be taking over at fast food restaurants. I mean, we're really going to see a huge change in the next 5 years. I don't think people are really ready for what's about to come, but technology is taking over in every single walk of life, and it's going to be such a drastic change. It's really, it's quite something.
It's freaky, man. Every time well, actually, before somebody in my Instagram said Tia Agenda 2045 said, oh no, that's not her name. 2045 is right around the corner. We have smart benches in California now. You live in California. Do you know do you know what a smart bench is? Have you heard of this?
I have heard of a smart bench. Yeah, and there's smart toilets now. There's smart everything. I mean,
what does this smart bench do?
I don't know all the details, but I've heard about the smart bench.
Tia Agenda, tell us what the smart bench in California does. I'm interested in this. I may have to Google it. Of course, I don't use Google because Google's evil, but you know what I mean.
And now there's, we're seeing robots do backflips. I mean, we're seeing robot. Have you seen some of these MIT robots? They're like, they can do in a lot of ways more than humans. They can do more.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
think about, I mean, right now it's already evolved, but just imagine in 5 years how much more evolved. Like if we
it,
think it's unbelievable right now, I think we're just getting started. I think what we're
yeah.
about to see, I think what we're about to see is going to blow our eyes.
No, absolutely. And back to the Putin interview, he talked about this. They talked about AI and Elon
And we're
Musk and
not
everything.
slowing it down. And that's the biggest problem. That is terrifying because all these high ups, these elites, these CEOs, they see how they can capitalize and make a fuck ton of money. And they see how this is the future. And everybody wants to get to, they want to get to home base first. They want to be the first to do it. It's like a race. And
Yeah,
whoever can capitalize the most, whoever can capitalize first, whoever can, dominate this market. And it's so competitive and so crazy that they don't care about safety. They just care about, and I understand the money is astronomical, but safety is really going to be the big thing in the long run. The money is great right now, but when you can't turn these machines off in the future, it's going to affect everybody, like I said.
it really is quite mind blowing when you think that we all, any reasonable human who's ever
And the
watched.
way, and real quick, the way they're selling this to the public for the most part is about accessibility and about enabling laziness and basically
Yeah.
encouraging us to have things handed to us and not go out and work for it and just do things with one click of a button. Go ahead.
Mhm. Oh yeah, no, I mean it's
But I
it's really.
understand convenience, but the convenience part is really is the thing that's looked at the most and too much. People are not, like I said, looking at the safety aspect. But go ahead,
No, you're
which is way more serious in the long term.
yeah, there's always this kind of, oh, isn't this wonderful? This is going to make your life so much easier.
Right.
But what it's really going to do is enslave you and ultimately exterminate you. I mean, like again, you've all know Harari. Going back to him, I mean, he says there will not be humans by the year. I don't know. He thinks, I can't remember his exact number he gave. He said like 100 years from now. I kind of think if we're on the same trajectory that we're going, it'll be a lot faster than that. But you're absolutely right that it's a race, and it's really insane how we all humans know this is a danger. All humans know this is exactly where they're heading, but we have no way of stopping it for the exact reason you gave. There's not only a profit motive, everybody else is doing it, so there somebody else is doing it, so therefore you have to do it too, or you're going to lose out. You're going to lose out on the profit. And then the same thing goes on the world stage with the military. So the United States military feels like it has to develop the most advanced AI, because if they don't, then China and Russia and Iran are going to do it, and then they're going to dominate. Because this is just like, it's really no different than the nuclear arms race, in that if you get the nuke first, then you control the world. And it says a lot actually for the United States that we got the nuclear weapon first, the atomic bomb, and we didn't use it to control the world. We used it to stop World War II. But you see the problem. It's like all the other countries got nukes, and then we all recognized, hey, this is an existential threat to humanity. If we just start shooting nukes at each other, none of us are going to be here. And it's the same, but that hasn't stopped it, because we've had try to have all these treaties. Okay, everybody get rid of their nukes, but nobody trusts anybody else to do it. I mean, the same problem exists in AI. So it's like, we can recognize all we want. This is an existential threat to humanity. This is going to result in Skynet, the exact scenario in the Terminator movies. We're all going to die. We're all going to be dominated by robots. Everybody knows that's the risk, and nobody's going to stop, because if they stop, then they're afraid somebody else is going to develop a more advanced AI. So, like, how do we stop this? It's impossible.
I know. And we look at how the government and all these various agencies at the top are already, getting their hands on this. And we know eventually they'll use this for nefarious purposes. They'll use it against their own people. We know how the government works.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, I got an answer. We got an answer on the smart benches. So according to Tia with a long underscore after her name, I know benches allow you to charge your phone. So the smart bench, you can charge your phone on the smart bench. They track what's around it. See, it's all about surveillance. That's what it's ultimately about. They don't advertise this, but she says it apparently measures our biometrics, which I don't. That doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, they're gonna know. There's.
Oh, yeah.
I saw a clip, and if somebody in the audience knows, please tell me what this is from. Alex Jones played it on his show like several months ago. I was trying to find it, but it's this clip from some old sci-fi show or movie. I thought it was like Twilight Zone or something like that, but I haven't been able to find it. So the plot is basically these two government guys, like officials, go visit this guy, like they're like deep state type people, and they tell him, "Hey." They start telling him everything about his life, like things they could not possibly have known. He's like, "How in the world do you know this about me?" And he said, "Well, remember when you got?" They say, "Remember you got that heart procedure years ago? Well, we had the doctor implant a device in you, and we've been recording literally everything you do. We know everything about you, your whole life from that point. And unless you do what we say, what we've recognized that you're a talented writer, you're a talented journalist." And we want you to write next year's news for us. He's like, well, next year's news? What are you talking about? Like, well, we plan out things and we want you to write all the news stories about what's going to happen, what we're going to tell the public. And he's like, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm like, okay, well, we're going to expose your whole life. And it's like, the illustration was, that's what these smartphones are like, right? And they're not even inside of us right now, but think how much they're recording everything that we do. And think about this. I had a scary thought last night, and I haven't seen anybody else talk about this. I had this thought, what if, so every human, I mean, we all have this, like every human has thoughts that we're not proud of. Like we just can't help it. Like we're born, the Bible says we're born in a sinful nature, right?
Tell me about it, brother. Tell me about it, man. Oh, absolutely. Too many of those thoughts. Too many.
Yeah, too many. And how many people start putting out a tweet or something, they start typing, they're pissed off about something or just passionate about something, start putting out a tweet, don't finish it, or they put it out and they immediately delete it. Or same thing with a text. And then or just say things to themselves out loud with their phone nearby. Like how much of that stuff is being recorded? The things that you would never tell anybody that you just kind of say to yourself. Or, I tend to talk to myself because I live alone. So that's what you do when you live alone, start to go a little crazy. And then like, you type in your phone or you just say things out loud. How much of that is being recorded? Like that could be used against people.
I don't doubt. Our every move is being tracked. Our everything we say is being recorded. But you're a lawyer, and I want to bring this up to you.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I said, I don't doubt it at all. I think we're always being recorded.
Yeah.
But why aren't they using some of these recordings in court of laws? Because if they have all of this access, if they know what everybody's doing, would that be too obvious? I mean, you're a lawyer. I think you're the best person to ask this question, because I've always wondered, because I do obviously believe that they know our every move. They're always listening. But if they had all that information, is the reason they don't try to pull that out in a courtroom is because it would be too obvious? Because everything people are saying about them spying is proven accurate? Like, give me your thoughts on that. Because
I think there's a few things going on. Well, this actually brings up.
Just think about how easy it would be to get all the murderers and all the rapists if they were listening to everything they were saying. And even, and I don't even necessarily think that burner phones are safe. I think those are even today, I think with the way technology, how advanced and evolved it is, those are being tracked too. People think that burner phones are safe. No, they're not. Nothing's safe. Maybe
like an analog flip phone. That might be the only, because it's not digital and it can't really be hacked, but maybe that's the only one. But I think those are going to go away. I think you're going to, it's probably now you need to buy, if you want to buy an analog burner phone, go do it now, because they'll probably disappear. Of course, then they won't have service for it, Anyway,
payphones were the best form of privacy.
What?
Even though I still feel people were listening. If we're gonna say anything was the best form of privacy, I would say payphones were. That's what that's what every mob individual used, every gangster.
Yep.
Obviously there were times where they were being tapped, but I would say that was the safest form. If we're gonna say what's the most safest.
Yeah.
But they don't have them anymore. And that's, obviously they got rid of payphones because of cell phones and because of things evolving. But did they also get rid of payphones for other reasons too?
I think you're onto something there. I mean, I think
I don't know.
little by little, and I will answer your legal question. Little by little, they're going to get the people that pull the strings on our side are going to get rid of things that can't be tracked. I mean, that's the next big step is to get rid of cash, to bring in the central bank digital currency. Then everything you do will be tracked. But to answer your question, I mean, there's a few things going on there. And actually, it's an interesting parallel to that Black Mirror episode I was talking about earlier, the entire history of you, because they did use it in court in that episode. So that the tracking device they put in people's head that tracks like everything you see, everything you do, that was used, as evidence of whether you did the crime or not. And that's how it's going to be sold to the public. The reason it's not done currently is because we still have privacy laws. You can't
privacy, and it would be against the rights, and it would be violating the freedom, right?
Yeah. So like I'll tell you, there's, we have a dual court system. We have a civil court system. We have a criminal court system. So 2 sets of laws in each state for each one. And then you have federal civil law and, federal criminal law. Anyway, on the civil side, which I'm a civil litigator, so I deal with this all the time. There are specific rules of discovery and evidence. So you can't just like for your example, if I sued you and I was serving discovery on you, I couldn't be like, produce all the secret information that your phone company is recording about you. Or I couldn't subpoena the phone company and be like, or Google, and be like, produce everything that you secretly recorded in violation of privacy laws about this guy, like all the things that we don't even know about, because they're going to deny it. They're going to be like, well, first, we're not going to violate our own customers' privacy unless there's some kind of legitimate need for it in this suit. We call it proportionality. Like, you can't just get everything about somebody. It has to be very specific. So I think that's a huge problem in like civil discovery. I think that's why you wouldn't be able to get that kind of information. And Google doesn't want to admit all the ways that it's actually tracking you because people would freak out. I think that's one thing that's going on. As far as the criminal laws, you're a lot more protected in the criminal law realm. I don't practice criminal law, but I know something about criminal procedure. And we still have a Fourth Amendment in this country. It gets violated all the time with these FISA courts and everything. I mean, I think like the FBI violates FISA like 5,000 times an hour or something like that. I mean, it's probably an exaggeration, but it's something large. It's some large number. And that might actually be accurate. But that's why you don't see all that. You couldn't, like, the government can't, get something from Google that Google wouldn't have the ability to record in the first place. Like, they're getting all the January 6th people by using the geolocation data, so they can get that with a warrant. But other stuff that they're not supposed to do in the first place, Google's not going to even admit they have that. So I think that's why you don't see that in court yet. But I think that is coming, and it will be sold to the public. It's going to be like that Tom Cruise movie, the pre-crime
Minority Report.
Minority Report. Yeah, exactly. Where it's going to be like pre-crime. We're doing this. They're not going to have psychics and stuff. It's just going to be like the psychics will be AI computer algorithms predicting everything that you're going to do using all the data. That's going to be Minority Report. It's not going to be like actual people with psychic powers. It will be a predictive algorithm, which if you watch Westworld, which I'm watching right now, that's exactly what they do. Like the character Aaron Paul, the AI robot shows him, who becomes human, shows him like, hey, the algorithm that's tracking you, it says, it is told the people in control of our society, you're going to commit suicide in 10 years. He's like, what are you talking about? And she like explains to him how they come up with this algorithm. So that's what's going to happen.
Yeah. And speaking of Minority Report, isn't it fascinating how they make these movies years prior and then all of a sudden it comes true? We've talked about this numerous times on the show.
Yeah.
That's why I watch all fascinating stuff.
Yeah, it's not that I'm a TV junkie. You can get useful information from watching a sci-fi show because you're like, this is exactly what they're planning to do. So I know how to be prepared now, and it gives you clues on what's going on in society.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We can give so many different examples. Contagion, Minority Report.
There's a million. Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think. Utopia, the movie where the plot is they release a virus that they manufacture to scare everybody into getting a shot that actually sterilizes you, and it's meant to depopulate the earth. I mean, that came out in 2020, the American version. I think the British version came out in like 2015 or something like that. But you watch it and you're like, that's exactly what happened. It's crazy. I mean, what was that the Ohio train derailment movie, White Noise, that came out like a few months before the actual train derailment, and it even had people who experienced that, who lived in the area and experienced that disaster, that were in the movie as extras. I mean, you can't make this stuff up.
I know what movie. I know, obviously I know the incident very well, and I know the movie. I have not seen the movie. How was that? How was the movie? Was it weird?
Oh no, I didn't see it. The White
I
Noise
didn't-
movie. Yeah,
Yeah.
I heard it wasn't that good. I don't really like
Trailer
Adam.
trailer looked kind of weird.
Yeah, I thought it did. I mean, I didn't feel like that would usually I do watch a lot of these movies because I want to
Mhm.
learn something from it. But
Right.
that one, it just didn't interest me. It didn't look that good. I was like, okay, I get it. They made a movie about a train derailment with chemicals, and then it happened. I feel like that's all I need to know about that
Yeah.
one. You know.
Yeah.
But
Case.
what about? Did you see what's that new one that on Netflix that everybody's freaking out about? Leave the World Behind. Have you seen that one?
I did see that. Yes.
What were your thoughts on
Produced by Barack Hussein, White Mama Obama, um,
that?
and Big Mike, his lovely
Big Mike. Oh
spouse.
my gosh,
Yeah,
that's a whole nother topic we can get
Big
into.
Mike.
There's so much going on.
I thought the movie was. I thought it was all right. I didn't think it was amazing. I mean, I enjoyed it. Um, yeah. I mean, I totally, understand the realities of this, and it's going to happen. I mean, and
Right.
the way they depicted this, the way they put it together, they're just setting everything up for the future. And this is all predictive programming, like we've been talking about. I guarantee you, we're gonna, in a year or two, or whenever this cyber attack happens, we'll definitely be bringing up this movie.
Oh yeah, I 100% believe it. Well, I don't know if we will be able to, because if that happens,
what does that mean, dude? Think about it. Like, we're so used to cell phones, we're so used to doing this podcast, we're so used to, watching TV. I mean, what are we gonna do? Are we just gonna walk the earth and try to scream, "Hello, anybody out there? Hello"? Is that pretty much what it's gonna be?
I think so, man. I mean,
Like, cars completely dead on the side of the road. I mean, is it look like an apocalypse movie?
it's really not that far fetched. Is the scary part? You watch that movie and you're like, I mean, that could easily happen. And I would encourage people watching. There's a really good documentary called Grid Up or Grid Down, Power Up.
Oh,
And have you seen that?
No. I wanted to bring up, though, another part of that movie, Leave the World Behind. Noticed how all the Teslas, we've been talking about for a long time, how electric cars, they're going to shut them off. The government's gonna play with them and going to control them.
Yeah.
Look at what the movie showed. All these Teslas completely dead, running into each other, completely programmed.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that was another thing David Icke talked with Alex Jones about. He's talking about Elon Musk. He's warning us about AI, but he's promoting self-driving cars that the government could take over and just drive your car. I mean, that happened in a recent episode of Westworld I was watching. One of the characters was trapped in this electric car, and she was like, "No, abort! I want to get out." And they're like, "Nope, we're taking you where we want to take you." The AI took it where it wants to take them. So why is Elon Musk promoting these, speaking of the evils of AI and then promoting these technologies that are leading to that? But I do think that the reason I watched that movie, I'm not saying it was a great movie. I mean, I thought it was entertaining, but it definitely had that predictive programming feel to it. They are telling us something like this is going to happen. That was my impression. And it's a warning. Everybody needs to watch that to think about, what would you do? Like, if there were no power, no communication, how would you survive? What would you do? And you got to be prepared. You got to have emergency food and water filtration and some kind of way to grow your own food, and people that you care about that will group together and be able to fend off. I mean, watch The Walking Dead. They had to survive by having these communities and wandering the earth, and it's hard to imagine, man. People have no frame of reference for it. We think we're going to wake up tomorrow and the lights are going to be on. That's going to happen for eternity, and it's really not that simple. Oh, I asked you though, have you seen this documentary, Grid Down, Power Up?
I have not. No.
That's really worth the watch. I would encourage people to watch that, because it will really motivate you to start badgering your representatives to do something about this, because our power grid is so vulnerable. It would take less than $5 billion to fix the entire thing. Like the $5 billion, and we're going to send $60 billion to Ukraine. Like,
Right.
and the danger is, here's the real kicker of the movie. For the entire U.S. power grid to collapse, not just a regional grid, the entire grid, it would only take 9 transformers to go down. So you strategically place transformers. To take down a transformer, you can either use an EMP. That's the easiest way probably. But it's a high tech way to do it. Or you could just have a roving band of people with 50 caliber machine guns and just strafe it until it shuts down. You could have a cyber hack attack on it, and which these are all from China. And so we don't know what backdoors China has on it. It could even be something as simple as a solar flare. We have these solar flares that are capable of overloading the electric system every 100 years or something like that, or 200 years. I don't know how often it is, but even just something not nefarious like that could wipe out the entire power grid irreversibly. We get these things from China. They have to be shipped over on a boat. You have to remove power lines and stuff to get them in. They're not replaceable. It's crazy. And we don't shield them. We don't guard them. They're just out there for anybody to take out. And what are these terrorists going to do?
Right. And think about how much dick our country is going to have to suck to get to literally, we're going to have to bow down to these foreign leaders that are committing these acts. They're going to own us. When that happens, think about all the begging we're going to have to do. Think about how much suffering this country is going to go through, and we're going to have to play by their rules, because you know what they're going to say. Well, if you want your power, you're going to have to give us what we want. I mean, it's going to come down to that. We're going to have to negotiate with terrorist type fucking leaders. I mean, I don't mean literally terrorists. What I mean is the way they're going to make demands. It's going to seem like we're dealing with terrorists.
Yeah. I bet you anything. I mean,
once they knock out the power grid, they have the ultimate control. They have all.
Yeah, it's crazy how vulnerable we are, and it's insane. The worst part, the most mind-blowing part, is that our elected politicians, they do nothing about it. Nothing. Because you know why? The power companies don't want to have to pay to fix this. But it's they could vote so they lobby against this. All of our politicians are paid not to do anything about the power grid, whether from the power companies themselves or maybe from other entities that actually want the grid to remain vulnerable. And it would take $5 billion to put lead shielding on all of our transformers. We don't do it. Why? It's insanity. It's suicidal.
Maybe because they wanted to get attacked. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that there's 2 reasons, or there's a few reasons. I mean, it could be somebody with the interest of keeping the power grid vulnerable for attack, or maybe even just for the purpose of profit. The power companies don't want to have to regulate this. They don't want to have to address this problem. So they just lobby the congressmen and the state legislators to just kick the can down the road. Oh, it's not going to happen on my watch. It's going to be somebody else's problem in the future. That's one of the problems.
I wonder what the insurance policy payout is on that.
Well, if that brings up another point. I don't know if you saw, but a bunch of major insurers have now revised their policies that now they won't provide for any kind of payment if it's an injury from war, unrest, insurrection, or something else, some other kind of societal. I mean, these insurance companies, they know what's going on. I mean, they're preparing financially. When you see that sort of thing, well, what do they know? What are they hearing? Or maybe they can read the tea leaves. I mean, it's quite obvious there's going to be some kind of collapse, but yeah, I don't know.
Dude, yeah. I wonder if any of this is going to happen before the next election.
That's the big question. That really is, because it's it's really hard to predict what's going to happen, because Trump obviously has a wide margin in these swing states over Biden, and the polls skew in favor of Democrats. So these are Democrat skewed polls where they oversample Democrats, and they have all their methodologies to do a suppression poll to make it look like the Republican is not leading, and Trump is just killing it in all these swing state polls. So all other things being equal, Trump will run away with this election if nothing else happens. But then So what are they going to do? And then you got the problem with Joe Biden. So like this week, the big news, or anyway, there's tons of big news this week, but Biden was ruled in. Basically, this prosecutor designated Biden as mentally unfit, mentally
Right.
incompetent, memory problems to be prosecuted. Like no
Right.
reasonable jury would convict this guy because they would just see him as an old man who's lost his mind. That was basically what he said. Yet he's the president of the United States. So what are they going to do? Like they cannot run this guy against Donald Trump. He's going to get absolutely destroyed. If they actually want to win, they're going to have to bring somebody else in. There's speculation. It might, Roger Stone really believes it's going to be Michelle Obama. They're going to do it at the convention. I don't know if they can wait that long because August is a long way away at this point. But what do you think is going to happen? Do you think the Democrats are going to continue to run Joe Biden, or you think they're going to try to bring in Big Mike, or what do you think they're going to do?
Newsom.
You think it's going to be Newsom?
Yeah.
Well, but won't they have you saw that James O'Keefe. I'm sure the gay, the fake gay date with the White House staffer who claimed to be high up in the cybersecurity. I don't know. He claimed to be some bigwig saying, well, and he's right. Like you can't. So Kamala Harris would be the runner-up because she's the vice president, and the Democrats are big on black women, a black woman. That's she has all the things for identity politics purposes. So you're telling me they're going to bring in Joe Biden, a white male who's already president, already looks bad for them. He goes down with a mental incapacity. Kamala Harris is the natural successor, but they're going to bring in Gavin Newsom, a white male, to leapfrog her. Like, how bad is that going to look for the Democrat Party?
Well, I tell you what, man, the way he's been traveling, the way he's been presenting himself, the way he's been to the White House so many times in the last couple of years, it really looks like he's their next golden boy. He's their next big rising star. And as fucked up as that is,
yeah, he's a psychopath, man.
he literally crazy. You know what, though, man? If he runs against Trump in 2024, he could beat Trump because he would break the vote with the women. He would definitely win that vote by more numbers than any Democrat in history. And we know they lead the voting bloc, women, especially Democrat women. And I could see him, he's very convincing. The guy's a snake. He's evil. But at the same time, he's extremely smooth, and he knows how to debate. He knows how to get himself out of any sort of dilemma when he's getting questioned. I mean, this guy can really, he just, there's something about him. He's like the typical politician that everybody warns us about.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe they will just bring him in and just be like, screw it. We don't care how it looks. He's our guy.
And he's a good speaker too. He's a horrible governor. He's a horrible politician, but he's a good speaker.
Yeah. He had that debate with Ron DeSantis, and everybody was like, all the people that were just like pumping the pom-poms for DeSantis the time. Like, oh, he destroyed Newsom. And I watched, I was like, he had a few good moments, but it's like with as horrible as Newsom's policies are in California, like I thought Ron DeSantis did a terrible job. He had he always struggles to land the punches. He gets the wind up all wrong. He doesn't land it. It's like Gavin Newsom's such an easy target. Like his policies are horrible. Like he has a terrible record, but he was able to hold his own against Ron DeSantis, even though he's got a terrible record.
It's because of the charisma. Newsom has it. DeSantis doesn't, and that makes all the difference in the world when you're debating and when you're going up on that stage on TV. Because keep in mind, I guarantee you, Newsom, he was made to have this sort of personality. And he practices. I guarantee you, he goes in front.
Oh yeah, he's smooth.
This guy's mastered it to a point where you can't. You just can't get in his way. He's just like it's like a robot. It's like remember, it's unbelievable. Go ahead.
The sad thing about really probably any politics anywhere. I said this about Putin too, because I was like, I watched Putin. I was like, he seems pretty likable. I'd love to get a beer with this guy and listen to him tell me all about Russian history and politics and the whole, that was fascinating to me. I love history. So I was like, and I have not delved deeply into Russian history yet. So I was like eating that up. I was like, man, that's really interesting. A lot of people thought it was boring, but I was like, uh, well, first, why can't we have a president like that who can actually get a full, a complete sentence out and knows something about the way the world works, as opposed to Joe Biden. But at the same time, I was like, I think the point I'm trying to make is most politicians, and this is the sad part, most politicians get to where they're at by being very good liars. It's like,
Absolutely.
whoever is the most convincing liar, that's who does the best in politics. And that's why I've never gotten into, like, I'm into politics. I analyze it, I talk about it. It would take a lot to get me to run for something because, man, it is just dirty. It is just a dirty world where the only way you get ahead is pretty much by lying. And if you're just an honest, God-fearing, patriot, freedom-loving American, it's really hard to get elected. They will destroy you. You're not going to get any money. It's really rough out there.
Yeah, you got to sell your soul, man. You got to basically, you got to do what they
It's like,
want.
okay,
Want you to do.
I have a question for you. What are your thoughts? Because we haven't even talked. I mean, this is our first show we've done together in the new year.
Yeah.
What do you think about the Kerry Lake bribery thing? Because I have some theories on this. What do you think about that? Somebody on Instagram said they can't see us. I don't know why. I don't know what to tell the Instagram people. I can see myself fine.
You can't. They can't see you. What?
I guess maybe I'll look. I'll see what my feed looks like on my phone. But
regarding the Kerry Lake scenario,
yeah.
I don't like. I mean, here's the thing: we understand that this kind of stuff happens every day. We know that, these GOP chair individuals. They've I guarantee you.
That's what we look like on Instagram. They can't see our faces, but it's like that's the problem. You can hear they can hear us, so I think it's just like that the whole time. It like that's the problem with streaming from Restream to Instagram. It zooms in too much. So y'all, if you want to see us, just get on my Rumble channel. It's just it's uncanceled.video or X at Fired Up TX Lawyer. If you're having a problem on Instagram, just go to the X feed or go to Rumble, which is uncanceled2ls.video. Anyway, continue.
With the whole Kerry Lake thing, this kind of stuff obviously happens often, very often. We just don't really hear about it. There are so many politicians that run for office that get, paid off. So this doesn't shock me. I know Jeff DeWitt. I met him years ago. I've even interviewed him before. He's a weird guy. He's a shady individual.
Yeah.
He's just a scum. He's not somebody that should be representing the party, and he should have never had that position in the first place. And that that's another person that Trump unfortunately had in his cabinet. Not a good choice.
Wait, Trump was in Trump cabinet, you said?
No. He served as wasn't it NASA? Didn't Trump appoint him to NASA or something? Trump appointed him to some position. I think it was, well, not directly in his cabinet, but Trump appointed him. I think it was NASA, if I'm not mistaken. I'll have to look, but I know DeWitt was involved. But Kerry Lake, I'm glad that was exposed. But recording somebody without them knowing, I don't know how I feel about it. I don't like corruption, but at the same time, if she does that to him, who else will she do that to?
Well, yeah,
to get her way and to move ahead. And I'm not just saying with her. I'm saying with any politician in general. Does that say something about character? I mean, even though this guy was in the wrong, even though he's a weird dude, even though he should not be in that position, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I look at it two ways, I guess.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. Do you think that the interaction was genuine, or do you think it was staged in some way?
That's another thing. You only heard what, like 50 seconds, maybe 40 seconds. We didn't hear very long, did we? And it wasn't from the tape. The clip I listened to, it was pretty brief.
Yeah.
Same with you. It was brief. Right?
It was she had a full like 50-minute recording.
Oh, because I heard like 40 or 50 seconds of like the main stuff that was said. Because I think I was reading it in a headline, and then they showed the clip. There was like the bits and pieces of it. But you were saying you had thoughts?
Well, yeah. I mean, okay. So let me take you through my reaction. So I know a little bit about just kind of
It did
sitting.
seem it didn't seem like they were in a conversation and it just the recording just it felt like it was planned. It felt like it
Yeah,
was staged.
okay. Yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly. So I really wanted to believe it was authentic because I want to see. I want to believe that Carrie Lake.
Publicity stunt. Publicity stunt. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's like I want to believe Carrie Lake is the real deal. I had heard some things about her. It's kind of a long story.
Dude, unfortunately, I mean, I know there's a lot of people that are fans of her, but
Yeah,
I've been saying for a few years that she's a
she's
phony,
not
that she's not who she says she is.
exactly.
She will say whatever it takes to get elected. She's that type. And I don't find that genuine. I don't find that authentic. I find that, shallow. And I think that's what an opportunist is. But, I get most politicians are like that, but that still doesn't make it right.
Yeah, no, I agree. I wanted to believe Carrie Lake was the real deal for so long. I mean, we all do. We all want like somebody who we can really believe in, who's a genuine statesman, selfless, really cares about the people. And I did think that about Carrie Lake for a long time. But then I started to get to know a lot of people in Arizona, just activists that are
Yeah.
on the ground that are very
Yeah.
involved. And they're all like, everybody I talk to is like, Carrie Lake is not well liked in Arizona. I'm telling you, like people that are in the know, which I related to. I understand this because Greg Abbott is
He
the
got beat by a blue Democrat governor. I mean, if that's not any indication or any sign, I mean, Arizona, think about it, got a blue Democrat governor. This is a far leftist. That's crazy. Go ahead.
well. I mean, I do think she is the legitimate governor of.
Oh, absolutely. Because there were a lot of people that
Yeah.
moved there from other states. Oh, absolutely. I agree.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of shenanigans in that. I mean, the printing paper. I mean, I followed the case very closely that went up to the Arizona Supreme Court. I mean, she absolutely got screwed out of being governor. Now, one problem I have with her is she still had another appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court because she did have an equal protection claim, and that could have gone all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. But and she could have raised tons of money for that.
Oh, you think Carrie Lake won that? You think
yeah,
she
no,
won that? Oh
yeah,
no,
no,
I don't know, man. I think the other person won just because of all of the people that moved to Arizona in those prior years from other states. Because Arizona is, Phoenix is now the fifth biggest city in the country. There's like 4 million people in Phoenix, and there are
right.
so many Democrats that moved there. And I think that's why the election swung in Hobbs's favor. But I mean, I understand that people, found voter fraud with the whole election, and Carrie Lake may have got some unfair treatment.
Well, here's what I'll say. Here's what I'll say about it. Now, I mean, neither of us sitting here right now can prove like it's all speculation, right? I mean, yeah, that's a good theory, and that you could be right. The polls were showing Carrie Lake up pretty big before, like on the eve of the election, and somehow Katie, Hobbs ends up winning. But what is definitely true is that Maricopa County did not follow Arizona election law in a pretty bad way. I mean, a pretty obvious way. They did not have a true signature match. I mean, if you look at the evidence in this case that they brought, her lawyers collected to the extent they were allowed to. I mean, the mere fact that Maricopa County fought them so hard on no, you can't see the signature match. You can't see any of that. It's like, well, why not? If this was the most secure election, if there were no shenanigans, then why can't we see it? So then they finally get the judge to order like a sampling. You look at some of these signatures, they are not the same signature at all. And so there were like I mean, much more of these than there were the margin of victory. I think the margin of victory was like something like 20,000, 10,000. It wasn't that much.
Mhm.
And the amount of, so there was the signature issue, there was chain of custody. Like Arizona law provides when you submit a ballot, it has to go through a very specific chain of custody. They didn't follow any of that. Under Arizona law, you're not allowed to count that. There were more votes like that than the margin of victory. So there were tons of legal problems with the election, and they should have done a redo. They should have had a redo because you can't legit, just like Trump in the 2020 election, you can't say Katie Hobbs is the legitimate governor of Arizona because they didn't follow the election laws that are designed to prevent fraud. So that's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that the voter fraud with these various elections that has gone on in the last couple of years is extremely troubling, extremely problematic, and nothing ever really gets done about it, you know? And then it just keeps happening, and then people complain about it, but I don't really ever see anything get done about it. Like, no big solution.
Yeah, because probably a lot of the people in charge, like I can tell you in Texas, they don't want to do anything about voter fraud because
Right.
Abbott and his cabal of rhinos in Texas basically run. I think they steal the Republican primary elections. Like you're
Yeah.
telling me, with as much grassroots angst as there is over against the establishment, not a single establishment Republican lost their primary election in 2020. Was it whatever the last one was, 2022? Not a single one. And like you look at the numbers and it's kind of weird. Like look at Abbott's primary election. So there were counties where anti-Abbott candidates performed way better than the other ones, or than they should have. Like the numbers don't add up. Like, but Abbott got like the same percentage vote almost like across the board in every county, which doesn't make sense. So there is a lot of shenanigans and so that's why I think they don't. A lot of these Republicans don't want to fix it because they're benefiting from it. You know, you have to remember that the Republican Party is merely the controlled opposition against the Democrats. So a lot of these elections are rigged for Republicans, you know, who are going to basically be controlled opposition.
Uniparty, man. Uniparty.
That's what it is. That's exactly what it is. But to finish up on Kari Lake, like here's my theory. So I don't trust Kari Lake just because of activists that I know that know her, and she's a different person behind the scenes than she is on camera. I don't trust her.
I heard. Oh, yeah, I've heard she's a pretentious.
Yes.
Cunt. I've heard that she is superficial. She's not genuine. She's not who she says she is. There's also reports that her and her husband are swingers. I mean, that's their own business. Wow. But I think that says something about character. I mean, whatever, like I said, though, whatever somebody does in their personal life, that's on them. But
yeah, I don't trust her. I mean, people are, you know, get this. She's for her own Senate campaign. She's not even campaigning in Arizona.
And she used to be a Democrat. And she used to be a Democrat. So that's another thing that should. Yeah, and she was a news anchor for a very liberal channel in Arizona for a long time. So. Yeah, yeah. Most of her friends are liberal, but go ahead.
Yeah. So here's my theory, just to lay it out. So here's what I think happened. I really wanted to believe that call was genuine, and I heard it on the Alex Jones show. He was talking about it, which I used to really love. I still love Alex Jones, but lately,
what is he sucking up with Kari Lake?
Yeah. No, he was really like
he's doing, you know what? He's sucking up to a lot of people that you would not think, because you've mentioned a few names on here in the last couple months, and it's like he's changing. He's not the same person. The way he sucked up to Israel too, you said. So I mean, there's
I've been watching him for years, and I've never, like, since I've been watching Alex Jones, I've been like, man, he's right on the money. He's like telling it like it is.
He needs to take a big payday from the higher ups so he can pay off these lawsuits.
I think that's what happened now. What? I really think that's what happened. I think he's controlled opposition.
Hey, Alex, if you just do what we say, we'll pay off your lawsuits. You'll be out of debt. You'll be taken care of. Okay, no problem. You got it.
Yeah. I mean, it's just the way he talks to people now. You're like, he is hiding something. He's equivocating. Anyway, let me finish the point on Kari Lake because I keep going down these rabbit trails. So basically, I heard about it on Alex Jones. That's where and he's talking about, he's like, this is exactly what the globalists do.
that voice, man.
We all know that. We all know this happens behind the scenes. And so and you listen to the recording and you're just like, holy crap. And I was first just like, well, whatever I thought about Kari Lake, this was my initial reaction. This is very telling. I heard that clip and I was like, whatever bad things I thought about Kari Lake, she is back in my good graces. Because if you listen to the whole clip, she's like, well, I'm not going to be bought off. She's like, this is all about trying to get Trump. Like, he's like trying to buy her off. She's like, I wouldn't do it for $1 billion. You tell them they're going to. She's like laid on so thick. They're going to have to kill me. Is that what's going to happen? Are they going to try to kill me? You know, and you're like, listen to that, and you're like, man, what? That's badass. You know, way to go, Kari Lake. And so that was my initial reaction. And then I started to think about it, and I was like, that was it. Like she had like the perfect response that you would definitely want to hear. It was all of a sudden I started to think like it seems like it was staged. So here's what I think actually happened. They're talking about, oh, Jeff DeWitt's like, our friends back east, these globalist billionaires, like they want to pay you basically to sit out the Senate race, and then you can re-enter politics 2 years later. But just sit this one out. We'll take care of you. We're going to pay you millions of dollars. We'll get you set up in some nice consulting job or something like that. And you're basically you're going to have it made in the shade, and you're going to be super rich. And she resists, but in the recording. But what I think happened is she actually did make that deal. But
Right.
The deal, I think they both did. And the deal was, hey, Carrie Lake, people are starting to notice that like Carrie Lake is maybe not who she says she is.
Right.
So we need some kind of political stunt to like
Right.
get her back
Stage
to
yes.
graces, And that was the perfect one. And I was like, who in their right mind would say all those things that Jeff DeWitt said, like just laid it on thick? I mean, it was like, we're going to bribe you. I mean, very explicitly. Why would you have that conversation in somebody's living room with their phone present, and you don't ask them, like, do you have a recording device? Like, that's not how it would happen. That's not how it would happen at all. These people are not that careless. So I just thought, you know what? That was a political stunt. And I think she made some deal where they were both paid off in some way or guaranteed something in the future for them to pull off that stunt. I think it was fake.
Well, that seat, she has no chance. I mean, that Ruben guy, that far leftist Ruben Gallego, whatever the hell his name is, he'll win that seat.
Oh, he will?
From what I've seen in the polls, I think he's leading significantly right now.
God, that's just insane. It's insane. That's
you know what? I don't like people like her because she lost and now she's running again. It's just I don't know.
Well, yeah, and that was.
I think this is what I think. I think if she loses this time, I think she'll do it again. She'll continue to run. Yeah. She likes the attention. She likes the spotlight. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, absolutely. Yeah, and that's one thing that she loves the spotlight. I mean, she was in news broadcast.
If you lose, stand to the side and let somebody else have a shot. Like, stop putting yourself, in front of the line like you're the greatest thing when you've proven to not be able to pull off the victory. Go ahead.
No, exactly. And there was somebody else. There is somebody else. Sheriff Mark Lamb.
He's amazing. I love that guy.
Yeah. And she's running against him, and she's running a smear campaign against him. And for why? Why is she doing that?
I can tell you one thing though. Before she ever came along in Arizona, he was very well respected, very well adored. Yeah, I mean, and in certain ways, he's more well known than she is. If you mention that name nationwide, people usually know who Lamb is.
I mean, I think overall she has more name recognition, but I think that Mark.
I think Lamb is right up there though. People know he's been doing this long enough where people know who he is.
Yeah. I mean, people in like the grassroots patriot movement, I think he commands more respect than Carrie Lake. But yeah, anyway, the bottom line is I think
not raising as much money as she is. There's no way.
Yeah. And she, I know somebody, an activist who had like a really good candidate lined up for a very important position. I'm not going to give any specifics because I don't want to expose this person, but a key position that we needed. And she swooped in and like blew that up. Like, I'm not going to tell the story because I don't want to reveal what it is, but it was very shady and self-serving. And so the bottom line is don't trust Carrie Lake. I don't think she's the real deal. I think she's fake. And it's very disappointing because I was really a huge Carrie Lake fan for a long time, and I think the call was staged. That's the bottom line.
She reminds me of that pig, Smelly Kelly Ward, the person that ran numerous times in Arizona that all the conservatives were, boosting up and putting on this pedestal and saying she was going to be the next big thing. And
oh God,
she lost two or three times. I just, and this is a problem. Too many people look at these politicians like they're Superman, like they're going to save their life. And that's just not the case. Like these politicians should not be getting celebrity treatment. And they do. They constantly do. They're told how great they are. They're told that they're amazing, that, just fuck this, man.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. We should probably wrap it up.
All the power they have, man, making our laws. We need term limits, dude.
That's one of the most important things. I mean, if I could pick one thing that our founders should have put in the Constitution, it's term limits. I mean, that absolutely is true.
Before we take, I know we got to run here in a second. But as you were saying with term limits, finish your thought, and then I want to mention.
I don't have a hard stop, but I need to get going. Yeah, no, I mean, that's like there were two things I was like, term limits, and there's something else like, there should be like, states. These are the two things I would have changed about the Constitution in hindsight. I mean, obviously our founding fathers were brilliant. They could not possibly have thought of everything, but term limits is a huge one for obvious reasons. The longer you stay in Washington, the more corrupt you get, the more part of the uniparty you become. And then also, the states should be able to override a Supreme Court decision by you should be able to have an easy method for a convention of states to override a Supreme Court majority opinion, because it gives too much power to the 9 people in robes. I mean, way too much power. Like, it's like the abortion thing. I mean, individual states feel very strongly about this. Their citizens feel very strongly on this issue, and many other issues. I mean, gay marriage is one. A lot of states didn't want that, but it's crammed down their throats by 9 people in robes. And states should have some autonomy to be able to reject a Supreme Court decision like that. There's got to be some kind of mechanism for that. So, the Supreme Court cannot be the last word on what it's like. Well, the Constitution doesn't even give. Here's the crazy thing. The Constitution doesn't even give the Supreme Court the power to interpret the Constitution. They gave that power to themselves in the Marbury versus Madison decision. And it's like, they can't be the end all be all, because if you can say what is in the Constitution, then you're the most powerful branch of government,
No, I agree 100%. Well said. I want to ask you, what's going on in Texas with the border? What's going to come about with that?
I mean, it's obviously a mess. Here's the problem. Here's the problem with Texas. We have this. The state is run by rhinos. Greg Abbott, he is honestly, he's up there. Top 3 politicians I despise the most, because he is able to fool so many people that he's this great conservative. People are like, oh, thank God we have Abbott. It's like thanking God that the devil exists. I mean, it's just like he's so good at political stunts. He's the best, like the very best, because he fools so many people. Like, I mean, just for instance, everything to do with the border. I mean, this razor wire thing is a perfect example. It's like, okay, he makes a big deal about how he's going to take a stand over this razor wire thing. It's not even real razor wire. It's like concertina wire, which is a lessened form of it. It's not like actual razor wire. But InfoWars went down there and like, you can get over this razor wire. You just throw a tire on it, throw a blanket over it. I mean, you can hop over it. Basically, it's not, and like it all has to do with 1 mile of Eagle Pass, like this Shelby Park area. You can walk a half mile down the border and it's wide open. You can just walk across. Like it's all political theater. And Abbott's ready to start a civil war with all these Republican governors are just grandstanding over this issue. Oh, we're gonna stick it to the feds. Never mind the fact that like the other 999 miles of Texas, however long the Texas border is, I don't even know, are still wide open and anybody can cross there. But so it's all for show, man. I can't. The only thing that's going to change, that Abbott is one problem. Dade Phelan, the Texas legislature is run by Democrats and rhinos. So basically, the House, like the Senate's good. The Senate is actually very conservative. They passed all the legislation that the grassroots wants them to. The Senate is solid. What happens in the Texas House of Representatives is that the Democrats all vote as one block for who they want as speaker. All they need is like 6 uniparty rhino Republicans to join them, and they can pretty much pick who the speaker is. Like the Democrats and Democrats with an R next to their name pick who the speaker is in Texas, and then the House Speaker has incredible power to kill whatever legislation he wants. And Dade Phelan is basically on the payroll of the Biden administration. I mean, he gets money funneled to him through all these, PACs and stuff that's completely aligned with the left, completely aligned with Soros. He's basically owned by George Soros. And, what are we supposed to do about that? Like there's no easy solution because they kill all the conservative. Dade Phelan, we would have a border wall being built in Texas right now if Dade Phelan had not killed that bill. So he's the problem. Abbott's the problem. Won't do anything. I mean, Texas is in bad shape. It's in really bad.
Speaking of bills, the bill that they passed in the Senate.
Oh, don't even get me started.
Oh, it's horrible. It's horrible. I mean, we have the beta male Lankford representing our immigration talks for our party, and this guy. People are saying in certain regards this makes things worse, this deal that they came up with.
Yeah.
So, and I've been saying for a long time, and we've talked about this, they never put in a sustainable long-term solution for this matter. It's always something that we have to face and deal with. Like, I think they purposely do keep this alive and the problem going so they can continue to campaign and fundraise on it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, that's absolutely true. I mean, they don't want to. I mean, the border bill that's probably the most treasonous bill anybody's ever tried to pass outside of the Patriot Act. I mean, it's the vast majority of the funding goes overseas from all these conflicts that the same people caused, the same people profit off of. 60 billion. It's like 60 billion to Ukraine, 14 billion to Israel, so they can, continue their ethnic cleansing of Gaza, so they can annex Gaza, which is what they've always wanted to do. Which, well, I could go down that tangent forever. And then it's like another 10 billion for humanitarian relief for the families of Gaza, which they're gonna give that to Hamas, so that Hamas can buy more weapons and keep up this, continue to be Israel's perennial boogeyman. Like, whenever Israel gives humanitarian aid to the Gaza families, because we give humanitarian aid to the Gaza families. Yeah, they give it to Hamas. You really think Hamas gives all that money? You think Hamas, who is dedicated to the extinction of Israel, you think they give that money to the Gazan families, or you think they go buy missiles they can fire into Israel? It's ridiculous. And then another, what was it, like 5 billion to secure to the Red Sea conflict that we started with the Houthis because of Israel. Like, it's like we could stop all of that overnight. Putin said it, like, United States, stop sending weapons to Ukraine, stop sending money to Ukraine. This war will be over tomorrow. We're not going to invade Poland. Like, what the hell are you talking about? That doesn't even make any sense. Why would we want to do that? We have no interest in Poland. And there's no evidence they have any interest. And then Israel, like, stop bombing Gaza, and then we won't have this conflict with the Houthis. You know what I mean? Like, it's insane. Like, what is going on? This could be over tomorrow. So it's like 95 billion has nothing to do with the border, nothing whatsoever. And then, like, we get 20 billion for the border, but there's no, like, requirement to build a border wall. There's like, you can build a border wall, but, like, there's no requirement to in the bill. And then most of it's going to be used to just process these people more efficiently into our country. There's nothing that's like, build a wall, it's not a border security bill. There's nothing in there that's to build a wall and erect a security force. And by the way, they snuck in with this 5,000 person limit. They snuck in this provision that people from non-contiguous countries, aka like Mexico and like contiguous countries to Mexico, don't even count. So if you come here from China, Yemen, Somalia, like whatever other country in the world, you don't even count against that $5,000 limit. It's a complete fraud. It's insane. These people should be prosecuted for treason.
Oh, absolutely. Things are backwards. Our system is broken. We have a country to save.
Yeah, man.
But we have a lot of work to do, my friend.
Yeah, we absolutely do. Well, this was great. I'm so glad we got to finally do our weekly show. We need to set like a consistent time so people know how to tune in. Let's talk about that this week, because I know our schedules are both kind of up in the air. But yeah, maybe I think early afternoon works good for you usually. Yeah. I think on Saturdays. So yeah, maybe we'll do let's try to shoot for maybe like 3 p.m. Central Time Saturday, and like that would be 1 p.m. your time.
Yeah, that works. Another great episode in the books. Counterpoint with Rory Sauter and Paul Davis. I want to thank you all for tuning in. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. God bless. Much love. Cheers, everybody. We'll see you soon.